Here we are. We finally reached the end of Make Your Mark, and Tell Your Tale now has a brand new season out. What now?
Hey, sort of back from break. I decided to make this video because, well, Make Your Mark is over for the time being, so I think it's time I give my full analysis of the entirety of G5. I'm sure you've seen a lot of reviewers already just calling it shit, and maybe a couple calling it the best thing in the world, which is very rare. But let's try and take it from someone who can see both sides, the good and the bad. You know, just because I'm a fan of it myself doesn't mean I can't call its bluff. I will admit, this channel was mostly based around the series of Make Your Mark because Tell Your Tale, the series, hasn't really entirely stuck to me yet. But it's getting there. I'll explain later. So, for this video, I would like to put my own personal perspective on what did and didn't work for G5. A review, as you will, or at least I'm gonna try. As well as what I and probably many others would like to see and not see for the foreseeable future of G5, I'm going to quickly be going over almost every piece of the series media that we have been given, minus the toys, of course. I am really not a toy collector in this department, even though some shelves in here might say otherwise. I am mostly interested in the lore and story of MLP. While I wouldn't mind having a few MLP merchandises, I'm not a crazy fanatic over them. I'm sorry. Like, no offense to anyone that is. Y'all are cool. This is not really in the fear of the fact that my channel could die. It won't, by the way. Trust me, I have many plans as long as I'm able to execute them. More on that another time. But more the fact that I really do believe that G5 deserves a lot more than it did, and could actually get better if given the chance. Even though there's GM Burrow, excuse me if I'm butchering that last name, being head director, a lot more could have been done with G5, especially show-wise. So, let's get into the schmeal before I get too ahead of myself. Starting with the thing that started it all, the movie. Now, I don't know about you, but the movie is one of the biggest things that got me into the G5 scene. The animation was phenomenal and beautifully well done. The songs, at least most of them, were catchy and fits the MLP style of songs with a new fling. And the story left my fierce brain grinding because of the fact that this took place after Friendship is Magic. Some can argue, and a lot have, that it breaks a lot of what Twilight did, making all of her efforts sort of in vain, but honestly 100 or 1,000 years into the future can really change a lot. Not everything sticks to being perfect, not even in a world filled with colorful magic ponies. And that's what I saw in the G5 movie. I love the fact that Sunny and her father know and remember Twilight's legacy, and try to keep it going in this new setting of a semi-apocalyptic and corrupted world. I butchered that word so hard, but I'm just gonna keep it in anyway. And Sunny's character in the movie was that protagonist's energy, trying to bring hope and unity back while this new Equestria was fighting against her. I don't want to have this be too long, but the rest of the characters and what we now know as the main five did have good roles in the movie. Hitch being a supporting friend, but knows his job and plays as a sheriff. Izzy being the preppy, charismatic character, becoming Sunny's instant best friend. Pip being a really good musical performer, but knows when to lay low and be friends with. And Zip being the one who also knows something needs to change, despite the environment she grew up in. To me, all of them are very likable characters. And it was really funny knowing that Lisa Kashi, an old content creator I watched a lot during the Vine days, would be the voice of one of these ponies, let alone Zip Storm.
Hey, guess what else is here for $1? Pot holders to hold your pot?
It definitely did grow on me as I watched the movie though, because it does fit her character. But there's also Hitch's voice actor, James Marsden. Funny enough, he spent his time with animals so much that he became the animal. And he still talks to animals. How funny. There, of course, is the worry and the main concern by many G4 fans that G5 is nothing but a cash grab to get the attention from the fans. But honestly, this is a cool concept of what happened after for G4. I mean, it certainly grabbed my attention, even though I don't really go that far back with the MLP fandom. The only big downside that I really thought about was the fact that Sprout literally destroyed Argyle's home with no real repercussions. Like, all of that work, broken, damaged, like, why shouldn't he be punished? Was it just a free pass card? Like, what happened? Now, since I knew that there was going to be some sort of series or show to follow up, I knew that they'd probably touch on that more, so I didn't think much into it back then when the movie first released. But, we'll get into that a little later. To me, the movie is one of the best things to come out of G5. When you take away all of the concerns of past Equestria and don't think too far ahead of it at this point, it's an enjoyable and fun movie for, honestly, anyone who wanted to watch it if they wanted to. However, if you're a theorist like I am, and you do think that far ahead and think about the past of Equestria, it does feed you quite a lot with what Argyle has in terms of his research. It also gives you a bunch of new theories to think about too, like, why do the Unity Crystals exist? Why did the tribe split again? Where are the Wendigos? Where did Argyle get all of his stuff? Who is Argyle? So on and so forth. And that, as well as the piles and piles of negativity for G5, is what pulled me into the G5 theorist scene. And, of course, the negativity for G5 as a whole is what made me want to become a MLP G5 content creator. A positive one, because there wasn't a whole lot of balance at the time. That is what I enjoyed out of the movie, and still do enjoy now, despite the future content G5 brought. Which brings me to my next topic for the G5 content: make your mark. The new series, starting out, was rather rocky, honestly. With the first chapter only containing one episode in it, it didn't give us a whole lot. I personally gave it a pass because I knew it was only the beginning of the series itself, trying to give the series a starting point for everything else that was to come after it. It did raise some concerns with things that weren't explained much, like with the Unity Crystals bugging out and literally creating a void, the Prisbeam Lantern that appeared sorta out of nowhere, new villain mention, and Sparky being a thing, you know, stuff like that. But I thought that some things would further be explained as the series went on. Despite some animation errors and the pacing being pretty off, it was alright for the first season? Chapter? However the fuck Netflix works. I guess that's one of the red flags right there. It's on Netflix. Chapter 2 came around and it gave us even more new things, like Earth Pony Magic now being a thing, learning about Opaline and Misty, and a little more about Sparky. We also learn a little more about Sunny's Alicorn powers. Some episodes in that chapter were just alright, some good, others not so much. Alicond, for example. Let me just get into that really quick. The lesson in that episode wasn't really learnt at the end. Hell, every pony pretty much got what they wanted, despite Sunny being put under all of that stress. And that's all the ponies even cared about. The way it all unfolded with the mirror and Opaline's intro was just very messy. And it could have been done so much better. And I know you're probably thinking, well, if you don't like it, why don't you write it yourself? Do you know who you're talking to? I have plans. Trust me, I have plans. There was also Whodunit and the attempt Misty made to steal the Priz Beam, only to then bury it in the community garden. Like, I couldn't even tell what her intentions were. Like, did she not want to steal it, and it was already too late for her to put it back? If I had to guess, maybe that was why, but it wasn't communicated very well. Like, I understand why people have their issues with G5, and why it's so disliked. I really do. But I gave it a chance because, again, this series was only starting, so it will have its bumpy moments. Episodes like Portrait of a Princess, however, was really nicely paced, and it did have a nice plot point between the two Pegasus sisters. I could get over details about it, but honestly, I think I am not the only one who's explained why it's good. So, you don't really need to hear it from me, you can probably hear it from others. The Unicorn Sleepover episode wasn't really that bad of an episode either, since it got into interacting more with Misty and the main five. Pretty fun episode, not a whole lot of flaws beside maybe the sleepover story that was told, but I choose to believe it since none of these ponies truly know about the full fucking 9 seasons of Friendship is Magic. So, all in all, it was pretty decent. Chapter 3, or the Winter Wish Day special, was also on a decent note, but also has its Deus Ex Machina moments, but not really. For a setting like this, it sort of makes sense. I guess the reason why people had an issue with the Priz Beam for this one is because it's never gotten a proper explanation as to why it exists. Thus, why it seems so random and out of nowhere. Like, what even is Priz Beam power? Where did it even come from, and why? It just seems to be connected to the Unity Crystals, but in what way? So it's just something we need to get used to until, by some miracle, we get clear answers. Or I eventually come up with some theories about it. Either of the two. Anyways, with Heartswarming Eve now being changed to Winter Wish Day, or Wishentine, or Warm Wishy Hoof, whatever, it shows us just how much Equestria has really changed over the generations. It does suck a lot that it's no longer really called Heartswarming Eve. But I do like to believe that there are some ponies who remember its original name somewhere. I'm not gonna get into deep theory territory at all for this episode, so my general thoughts are on this special is just probably could have been executed a little better. Maybe have Sunny remember or learn with Argyle's research that it was originally called Heartswarming Eve, and remind every pony of their roots instead of whatever the unicorns had going on. Like, if they wanted to still call it whatever they wanted or whatever they had in their sectors, then fine. But I think learning the lesson of what the season is really all about would have been much better. It would also fit Sunny's character into finding more unity between tribes, as well as bringing more trust into every pony in general. There was also no Misty for this, so big sad. Chapter 4, however, was one of the good chapters to come out of G5 at this point, as the Bridalwood special brought in a new tradition for every pony to indulge in. And I enjoyed it. This feels like something I would go to, just as long as some of my favorite music artists attended, but I would also just go there to have fun. The Troggles thing was also new and had a weird solution with no real explanation, but since there probably wasn't a lot at the time to explain with what was already going on, I'll give it a pass. With the rest of the chapter, though, it was a huge step from the last few. They had good morals, better animation, good songs, and overall, pretty good pacing and writing. Some episodes weren't meant to be taken too seriously like others, but I still had fun watching it all. With the Opaline backstory, I feel like that could have been written a little better, though. Or at least, given some more thought. But we did learn about a new location that's most likely outside of Equestria where alicorns live, called Skyros. And this is what drove me to my first ever theory here on YouTube. So, I gotta thank the writers for that. As for the whole thing about Opaline managing to reach the Dragonland somehow and the Dragon Stone existing, yeah, I don't know about that one still. I feel like there could have been more explained there, to be honest with you. It was very predictable that Misty was going to join the main 5 and eventually become G5's main 6, but I think the solution for her was good for the series. As Doc Anubis puts it, she went from a caterpillar into a cocoon to a butterfly, like her cutie mark shows, realizing that her friends are what she truly needed to grow out of that cocoon. And I really enjoyed that. It was very touching. It was also nice seeing some more stuff from the movie, like the factory being utilized into something new for this one. I like the idea of Canterlot Studios, and as much as I may have a slight grudge for Sprout after what he did to Argyle's house, it is kinda nice to see him again. Overall, one of the best chapters to come out of Make Your Mark so far. Now, on to chapter 5. My god, this was a theorist's calling if I ever saw one. If people weren't a theorist for this show before, they certainly are now. To me, this is my favorite chapter to come out of this series. Chapter 4 being a close second. We get a lot more hints and clues into what the past Equestria was like thanks to Elderflower. And we also get introduced into the idea of these together trees. We also see the Breezies again, looking a little different, and are now hosting the night market out of nowhere. But still pretty cool to see. We found out a little more about Misty's past and her dealing with actual trauma from her being with Opaline. We get to learn a little more about how cutie marks work and get introduced into this new Heart Locket artifact, which is apparently the same as G1's Heart Locket from what I've learned. Oh, and Opaline had the fucking Chest of Harmony? I'm still not over that. Anyway, fucking Jesus. There are the flaws of the fact that the night market just sort of came out of nowhere, and that there was no explanation as to why the Breezies are in the wishing tree, and why they all just exist here in general, even though in G4 they had a seemingly different role. It does leave a lot of questions, and I feel like they tried too hard to shove even more theories in this one chapter. Since this is one step closer to the final chapter, I guess I was hoping that chapter 6 would be the one to answer it all. At least the majority of what was left in these chapters combined. But, well... Yeah, chapter 6 was the one to kinda kill all of my hope, ironically enough. I mean, we got introduced to the dragons, or this new species of them, but then we also got introduced to Spike? Or what's supposed to be Spike after many moons of hibernation? Like, honestly, the design is growing on me now, but it could be a real slap in the face to most G4 fans, since this is Friendship is Magic Spike, but in G5. Other than that, we get an explanation as to what happened between Twilight and Opaline, but nothing really about why the magic was lost and why the tribes were split. Even Spike didn't even know that the magic was gone and that they all split again. We got Opaline to act as an actual villain, but way too late. We got an explanation for the Dragonstone, but only half. We got Opaline's defeat, but at what cost? The whole chapter was a large roller coaster for me, and sadly it's what pinned the nail on the coffin I was not hoping for G5 to get put into. And it only adds more fuel to the fire for people who already dislike G5 to hate it even more, and show that, rather its potential or not, G5 really is nothing but a cash grab. There was the Starlight special that did feel nice and felt more original and more connected to G5 stuff, but after everything that happened beforehand, I just felt empty. Everything I had for G5 in that moment was temporarily gone because of the bombs it struck me with. We won't get anything answered for it. They left us on a cliffhanger, for God's sake. We won't get any answers about it. We won't know any more about this village or this new villain at all. Unless...
Welcome home, ponies.
Hey, let's talk about the comics, shall we? The comics. These were the honest refresher of the whole series. I'm not gonna go over every single issue and one-off book. That's Doc's job, mostly. But I will say that the comics are extremely cool to read, and more of that extra lore hit. At the time, though, it does make me sad reading them because of how amazing it would be to see these analyzed and extracted into the show instead of just in the comics. Like with Discord's Return, the Paint Ponies, more emphasis on the main six and Equestrian Past, Big Hoof, fucking Milky Way. Maybe that's just how I prefer my digital content, how I like to consume it. But I still do enjoy reading the comics regardless. I don't even see any of these issues contradicting much with the main series, personally. It gives me even more theories to work on if I ever focus on these more. I mean, hell, it already kinda has so far. I guess I just really do wish it was more in the show format, since the comic writers seem to know more about what they're doing, especially in terms of lore and other past characters, and even bringing in new stories and plots. There is one particular comic that does leave me with a few more questions, and might contradict with a couple things, but I'll leave that aside for now. I don't really know what else to say beside that. Okay, alright, fine, I'll get into Tell Your Tale now. Okay, so after some rewatching and taking some time to think, I'm gonna give a much different opinion about Tell Your Tale. Tell Your Tale is good, mostly as a slice of life kind of show, but it's one that I can sort of enjoy and deal with, even when Make Your Mark is over. It may has grown on me a little more. I know I gave it some shit before about it being too fast and doesn't give that much focus onto the lore, but most of the episodes do tell some good stories in a 5-minute runtime. Hell, I'd even argue now that the 5-minute runtime does work for this series, majority of the time, even giving some good morals as well. I can see why this series ended up being so profitable in terms of toy sales and how it really did fit their target audience. But I can also see why the rest of the fandom likes this series as well. It is cute, and I can appreciate it for what it's doing on its own. That doesn't mean it doesn't have its issues, however. There are episodes that left a bad, rotten taste in my mouth. For example, the My Bananas episode. While I can see the other moral of the laugh your embarrassments off and move on kind of thing now, my first impressions of it were off. It felt like one of those profit over your embarrassment type lessons that I've seen most mainstream media celebrities, and let's be honest, most of reality TV, do. I guess it felt wrong to watch, as it was hard to watch for me, even. Especially seeing Sunny's pure anxiety attack about her mess up going nationwide for all of them to see. I mean, what would you do in that kind of moment? I wouldn't survive that at all. I really do hope that the other kids don't get the same first impression I did and end up learning it as a good thing. Hopefully they see more of the laugh your embarrassments off part in a more healthy way. I could continue more about it, but I feel like I've talked enough about it. Overall, not a favorite episode for me. As for the theorizing part, I'm becoming more open into digging into these topics as actual theories. Maybe because I'm running out of material, or maybe because I'm willing to give it a chance. Either way, there will be more Tell Your Tale related theories when I get around to it. I do have some, to say the least. The reason why I was hesitant and so pissed about these types of episodes in the first place was because they aren't utilized in a larger picture. You get what I mean? I feel like these episodes, like the Moon Festival, the one with the rug, heck, even Harvest and Hog's Day, could have used a bigger runtime to get more world building put into it. But I guess it wasn't all exactly considered when making the series, both Make Your Mark and Tell Your Tale. So, we ended up with this. I'm more okay with working with these episodes as theories, especially given the fact that Make Your Mark is over, for the time being. So, I guess watch out for that. Another one of the things I do truly like about Tell Your Tale is the designs and some characters. Maybe because some of them are actual contest winners, but there are also background ponies that do have good designs, even though they're just that kind of background pony. It's sad that some of these ponies didn't make it into the 3D series, but who's gonna stop me from doing that myself? Overall, Tell Your Tale isn't really that bad as some say it is, and not as bad as I thought either. It's doing its job as being a kid's show, and as much as I love deep story and lore, I can appreciate it for living up to what it's supposed to be. Not everything needs to be a deep, complicated backstory, and I get it. That doesn't stop fans like me, however, from wanting to see more from this series, and fans of the show still being around my age to enjoy it. I think what we're really asking for here is a bit more world building around these characters, like where these new holidays came from, and where are all of these other new things we haven't seen in G4 before. But I guess that's up to a job like mine, theorizing. Maybe one day the G5 team will really, actually, truthfully pick up on that fact. Either way, I'll be waiting here as always, even if it's for another whole year of just Tell Your Tale. I apologize for being so harsh on you before. Maybe you weren't so bad after all. Despite the flaws that G5 may have, I still do enjoy and appreciate G5's efforts, and still love G5 overall for what it's done right. While I do think a little bit that maybe G5 was better off as its own thing, I do not mind the fact that it's trying to connect to G4, even if it doesn't do well at points. Hell, it's why this channel was made, so I really can't complain. There are many things that I don't know if Tell Your Tale will ever cover that is still left in Make Your Mark. But as of right now, we're getting another year of it. I can only hope for the best. G5 as a whole has been out for about 2 or 3 years, unlike its predecessor of G4, which went on for 9 years. So things may change, or things may stay the same, and will all come to a full end. I do believe in due time, things will end up changing. Whether that be a new 3D series that follows up with the rest of G5, or a complete official rewrite. I personally, to be honest, prefer a small rewrite. Just a little. I think you know why. The team working on the movie originally said that their issues in G5 in the first place was due to allegedly being on a tight schedule, and that they were hoping this series could pick up on what they left off. There was also something I missed and heard tossed around a lot, that Burrow herself said that the reason why there hasn't been a whole lot of G4 things in the G5 series is because they're paying ownership fees to Discovery Family. Okay, one, to me, that sounds like bullshit. You're a part of a multi-million-dollar company. You can pay for it. 2, why make G5 connected to G4 if you're paying all of these fees? 3, don't y'all kinda own MLP G4? Like, what the fuck is going on? So, To put all of this in a conclusion, I am going to stick to G5 and where it may be headed. I may not put all of my focus on To Tell Your Tale, or at least, not all of it. It still doesn't really mean I'm not going to watch it. I just won't watch it in the moment it comes out all the time, like I did with Make Your Mark. Making theories for this series will be a little hard, but there may definitely be some who do it better than I do, and that's okay. I'm sorry, I originally said it as doing it for me, and that sounded fucking wrong, so I just the fact that I just at least have to re-record this little clip and not the rest, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sticking with what I got. I see all of the points of what other G5 fans love, but I do heavily see the issues that other G5 and G4 fans will have with it. I am a soul limbo within my own head. I feel you. What does that leave for me, though? Well, I'm still technically on break despite this video upload, but I have been working on other videos in the process of this one. I am not stopping my work, not at all. Like I said in my last video, throughout this one, I have many plans with G5. They're just not what you'd expect from me, at least not fully, since I know most of y'all are here for my theories. I am not technically a full-time content creator. I don't get paid for this job, this is solely just a hobby. But the reason why I keep it going for so long and I keep actually working on the content instead of leaving it to die is because of you guys. You guys do like my content, and some of you, most of you, want to see where I go next with it, so that keeps me going. I appreciate every single one of you for being patient and understanding that I'm not going to be able to upload every week, let alone every month. It'll take me a while to get these videos out, and I'm glad you all understand that. I have many plans set out for the future, and soon you will learn more about them as my time here grows. You'll see. For now, I shall head back to my Heidi Void until the Hasbro gods actually drag me out, or I have enough to come back out with myself. You can still find me in my Discord server. Join it by using the link below. I've been Jesse Greenheart, and I'll see y'all next time. With the heart. Cheers.